We are live, Ms. Wheeler.
Thank you very much, Zeba. I am ready to call our Board of Directors meeting to order. It's 5:33. Zeba, would you go ahead and call the roll? Thank you very much, Zeba. I am ready to call our Board of Directors meeting to order. It's 5:33.
Okay. Karen Harding Davis. Here.
Zeba, would you go ahead and call the roll? Thank you very much. Zeba.
Sean King.
Call our
Here.
Board of Directors.
Maria Mejorado.
Okay.
Karen Harding Davis. Here.
Okay, so somebody else hears the echo, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I got it. It's
Sean King.
Okay, hold on just one second. Let's see if we can't get rid of it.
Maria
Not that
Mejorado.
Jennifer doesn't love to listen to me over and over.
Karen Harding
I do love it.
Mhm.
I was gonna tell you the echo was just you, but it's really early in the meeting to mess with you.
Okay, I apologize. We got rid of the echo. Maria Mejorado. She's here. Her audio is connecting. Miss Maria, your mic is muted, just so you know.
All right, thank you.
Preeti Merchant. Here. Jennifer Morgan.
Here,
Ashante Norton.
Here.
Peggy Wheeler.
Here,
And our advisors, Jonathan Kaur. Philip Nani. Thank you, Ms. Wheeler.
thank you, Zeba. First, I will ask for any members of the public that would like to be heard on items not on the agenda. Hearing none, I'm going to go to item D and ask if there are any members of the public who would like to be heard on any items on our agenda for this evening. Hearing none. Please, I'll ask the board members to take a quick review of the entire agenda, and I'll need a motion to approve.
I'll move.
Thank you. Is that Maria?
Yes, yes. it is.
Thank you. I'll need a second.
I'll second.
I'll take Karen. First and second, Maria and Karen. I will call you by name. Karen,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
thank you. Maria,
Yes,
thank you. Preeti,
Yes.
thank you. Jennifer,
yes.
thank you. Ashante,
Yes.
and yes for me. Okay, consent items on the agenda. You want to just describe these, Joe? You're on mute.
I always mess that up. We need to find a way to make these things auto unmute, right? That would be the good way. Anyway, so yes, happy to talk about the consent items. So the consent items that we have for this month's meeting are fairly straightforward. First one is our board meeting minutes from July, followed by any personnel changes that we had over the summer. So, kind of the bulk of our summer resignations and hires or changes in position. We have our student and parent handbooks for each of the 5 academies. And then job descriptions. So we've been updating job descriptions to make sure they're reflective of the job duties that people will be doing this year when students may not be on campus. So the positions that are here, most of them are transitioning to virtual student support roles when students are not on campus. And then when students can return to campus, when the public health order changes, they would revert back to the traditional job duties that are on their duty statement.
Thank you. Before I give just minor comments on the student and parent handbooks, are there any other board members that have comments on any of the consent items? Okay, hearing none. Zeba, I'm happy to go through a few grammatical and editorial things offline if that it would be more convenient.
Sure.
I do have one question. There is a notation in the handbooks about the student dress code as it relates to taking classes during remote instruction. Could somebody tell me what they mean by how they want our students to dress while they're at home?
Yes, if I may address it, this is Addie. One of the concerns is people being inappropriately clothed, so not being fully covered while they're on camera. So wanting to make sure that all body parts are covered while they are on camera. So that was primarily the reason for that.
And that dress code is consistent in general with the charter's dress code. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so, you know, this may seem like it's digging in too deep. Are children allowed to be in bed clothes while, because all body parts would be covered while they take classes?
So the, excuse me, the desire is that they're following the same dress code that they would during the school year.
Mhm.
And the only time that students are allowed to have bedclothes on is if it is a special type of round.
Pajamas.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Do we, is that, sorry to, is that in here specifically? I didn't see it.
Yeah,
It
I,
is, bed closes?
I'm almost 100% positive it's on there, but I have to look at it.
Oh, yep, it does say under shoes, ironically.
Okay, so it's number 2.
It says pajamas can't be worn as shoes. But
So
it is there.
Yeah, it is there. We could separate that out. Where it's out of the shoe line into its own separate pajama line.
I would maybe include something related to like Spirit Week or special day in respect to pajamas, because it's so easy for kids to want to just wear pajamas in the morning.
Correct.
Like one of them, mine would totally go for that. So just, I think it would be nice just to specify that.
Ziba, do you have that edit?
Yes.
Thank
I'm taking
you.
notes, Dr. Ellis.
and then just one more thing on page 13 of the leading edge document. If you could take me there, Ziba, that'd be great. Very, very good work on everyone's part. I like the letters that you write in the beginning. Right here at the end where it says include academy specific goals, is that something that we're going to add to? Was that a notation to put something there? At the very bottom of the page, it says include academy specific goals. Amanda, you're.
I missed that. That can be deleted.
Okay, all right. Just making sure that some, you know, parent will read through this thoroughly and say, what does that mean?
Thank you.
Okay. And then Ziba, the rest is just commas, spacing, stuff like that. I'll do that with you offline.
Great, thank you.
I have one quick question.
Yes, Ashanti.
Can we go to page 19? So it's 19 of the actual document, not of the agenda packet.
Oh, 19 of the leading edge.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, the examples of infractions.
Yes. So there was a notation, if you go to tier 3, and it's in bold. It's the last column under tier 3 infractions, and the last arrow that says violation
Mhm,
of California law, section 48900. So
mhm.
was there supposed to be a citation to the specific code section there?
Underneath, is that the code section or not?
So then there's the asterisk that says violation of California law. And
Right.
the sentence reads, Natomas Charter School of Conduct and Behavior Policies take into consideration California Code Section 48900, but I
Mhm.
think we needed the actual code. So is it to the health and safety code,
Right,
the
right.
education
Oh.
code?
Add the phrase education code there. Okay, we can do that.
And I think it goes on the next page. There's a little chart that actually says what it is on the, I believe it's on the next page.
Oh, okay.
But we should cite the code because it's not, like as Ashante is mentioning, is it the education code, the labor code, the health and safety code? I think, we all know it's intended to be the education code, but we need to put that in there.
Mhm.
And so then that's repeated for the other academies, use that exact same chart and then asterisk notation, whatever that specific code name was supposed to be, if we can just add that for the other ones. And I think that was the only thing that I found that I wanted to bring to your attention.
Thank you, Ashante.
Thank you so much for that. And if I could just say publicly, thank you so much to Ziva. This is a work on since I've started, everything uniform. So thank you all for catching the commas and the spaces and the missing ed codes. This was it was a bigger endeavor than I thought it was going to be to have all of the handbooks uniform. So I did want to say publicly, thank you, Ziva, for all of your help.
My pleasure.
Great job. It's a lot.
Wonderful job. Wonderful job.
Nicely done. Very detailed.
All right. Are there any more comments, questions, or concerns about any of the items listed as consent? If not, I would like a first and a second, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second. This is pretty.
Pretty second.
Peggy, did you get that it was me?
Yes.
Jennifer, yes, yes.
Okay. Just kidding.
I'm looking at you, kid.
I know. I have to be careful. I have to behave.
All right, I will call you by name. This is to vote on the consent items. Karen,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Maria, you're on mute, Maria.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Brittany,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Ashante,
Yes.
and Peggy, yes.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to item G, action item, second reading and adoption of our health and safety policy for COVID-19.
So this is the COVID-19 policy that you saw at the July board meeting. Like all things COVID, this is a moving target. So right after the July meeting, we received a legal update from Young Mini and Core suggesting some additions to the policy based on the governor's latest public health orders on July 17th. And so in this policy, we noted any changes, or they're additions, they're not changes, in red. So these are just like, for instance, under page 3 where it says COVID testing and reporting. Let's see, Ziva, almost there. Scroll a little more. There you go. There's that bullet point. It says consistent with CDPH guidance. This is from the July 17th release from the governor's office and CDPH regarding when we do reopen campuses to students, schools have to participate in surveillance testing. And so that's describing what that surveillance testing participation looks like. So that's one example. But other than that, the policy is the same as you saw during the first reading.
Ziba, to Peggy's point earlier, if there are a few just comma and typos that I found, can I forward those to you after?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other questions, concerns, comments on our second reading of the health and safety policy? I would ask you, Dr. Wood, as changes are made to this, you'll obviously make them on the fly and bring it back to the board, or?
Yes, I think what we're going to end up doing is we will always have a standing board item that is probably going to be COVID updates.
Mm-hmm.
And we will talk about any policy changes, the latest information on reopening, all of that sort of thing will bring as part of those COVID updates.
Okay.
We'll have this policy. There's another one coming where we have a policy documenting our distance learning requirements. But we're going to let the school year start and get settled into those before we formally create a policy around it. But we'll have two, health and safety and distance learning, or the instructional components around COVID, that will continue to report with the board for the whole year.
And I don't recall, so someone remind me, if a student tests positive, do we or does the district require a negative test before the student returns to school, or just the expiration of the 14 days?
It's the expiration of the 14 days or a negative test. And it's actually, I think it's 2 negative tests within a 24-hour period. But ultimately they have to be signed off by public health or their medical professional, like their doctor, to be able to return to school.
Okay.
One of the biggest challenges with COVID right now is a lack of testing. And so when someone tests positive, they may not actually be able to access testing to test negative, especially with the idea of 2 tests within a 24-hour period.
Correct.
So that's why I have to find the exact wording. It's either 10 or 14 days. I think it's 10 days since they first received a positive test, and they have to, at the end of the 10 days, also not be showing any symptoms. And then they can return.
Okay. Well, like you said, this is in flux. We're learning more and more about COVID all the time. So
I would agree. And I think in any capacity that we have, both as school leaders and in our professional lives outside of school, that we can advocate for additional testing in our community, that's going to be key. That's actually going to be the #1 thing to getting schools open and keeping them open. Being on the monitoring list, I mean, that's important, don't get me wrong, but it's not as important as having accessible testing. That's really what's going to keep us open.
right. Accessible testing that sends results in a reasonable amount of time.
Yep.
All right, I'll take a motion to approve for adoption the health and safety policy for COVID-19.
So moved. This is Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'll call by name. Karen,
Yes.
Sean,
Yes.
Maria,
Yes.
Priti,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Ashante,
Yes.
Peggy, yes. All right. As we begin item H for discussion and information, I want to make note, Dr. Wood, it's 5:52.
Tell me to be quick. Is that what you're saying?
I'm just making note that it's 5:52.
All right, we will be expedient in sharing information. So let me find the right slide down here. And give me a thumbs up when you can see slides, because that's a good sign. All right, yay. So our intent tonight is just to provide a little update as to where we're at. Wait, I chose the wrong slides. Apologize. in a moment. Too many slide decks. That was for the reopening meeting last week we had with families.
That's
Let me get
crazy.
the right one up. All right. This should be the right one. Yes. All right. So our objective for tonight is really just provide a status update for you guys, talk a little bit about where we've been since we last met 18 days ago. There's been a lot that's happened. We have 2 days until school starts. We actually started seeing some kids on campus today as they came in their socially distanced, wearing face covering groups to pick up schedules and books and other materials that they need. And we'll talk a little bit about the road ahead, what you guys are going to see. So remember at our last meeting, we talked about our sprint to the first day of school. We have these 5 domains that we're looking at. So we're down at week 4. So really we're at the preparing for virtual student first week activities, implementing virtual first week events, and refining plans as needed and soliciting feedback from families. So since we last met, we've actually been doing a lot of family and student engagement. So we had community academy meetings with question and answer sessions for all 5 academies. We also had a bunch of small group meetings. So for instance, SEMA at PFAA met with, like the incoming 6th grade families, and then the middle school families, and then the incoming 9th grade families, really trying to set up individual times to discuss with families and answer any questions that they have. Star Academy and Amy Taylor did something similar with each of the grade levels as well. So we've really been trying to engage our families as much as possible. We also had a meeting with our special education families to get some feedback and our English learners families. And then we haven't not just talked to families, we've also been talking to students. So this last Friday, we had student forums for STAR, Leading Edge, and PFAA. And then Pact has been doing individual family meetings, and then VLA has been doing individual student and family meetings, really trying to get everyone kind of up and running. All of the content, as long as it's appropriate to be recorded and posted publicly, we've been doing that. With the intent that if someone can't make a particular session because of their work schedule, they have other opportunities to engage with the content. So in terms of updates on support structures, when we last met, we talked about trying to start distance learning hubs on campus, like for our special education and English learners. At this point, that's on pause until Sacramento County Public Health gives us approval. We only have approval for adults being on campus. And then for the second area that I have here, childcare support. So we can provide childcare following the CDPH CDC guidelines for childcare, which is what we've been doing all summer with our BASE program. So initially, we're going to be able to support about 40 students through that program. And we're focusing on TK through 5 students, recognizing that that's where families might have the largest daycare need. So right now we're in the process of soliciting interested families to find out who would sign up. And then we might have to prioritize a little bit, but we're kind of working through that at the moment. We've also been putting some employee supports in place. So all of our employees, campus is open to all staff, and we're welcoming staff members to come and teach from campus. But we also recognize some families or some staff members need a little additional support. So we've enacted temporary remote work agreements. So for the time period campuses are closed to students, we have some staff members that will be working remotely, and the temporary work agreement just sort of outlines that process. And then we've been, as part of that childcare support above, looking at childcare supports for NCS employees if their students also go to Natomas Charter School. And then just putting in place centralized resources like on our internet and that sort of thing, and doing professional development. We also working on family supports. So each of our parent groups for the 5 academies are working on building different types of connections. So whether they're support meetings they're putting together, or they're trying to pair parents up to support one another, so we're working on that. And so that's the parent support meetings below. And then similar to the employee support, where we're centralizing resources, we're working on centralizing all of our online resources to our public facing website for families. So families will be able to go to like natomascharter.org/distance learning, and everything that they need will be there. So we're working on that. Professional learning has been a big deal. This is actually a little picture kind of showing the PFAA teachers, PFA middle school teachers today. As you see, they're all socially distanced apart, outdoors, wearing masks. So we're being as safe as we can. But we've really been focusing on our staff development and teacher work days, focusing on just getting all of the beginning of the year stuff in place, celebrating last year's accomplishments, reviewing distance learning requirements, and then training on COVID health and safety. And then each academy's been hosting their own academy workshops to dig more deeply into their own distance learning plans, looking at how they're going to assess kids and support kids. And then Laura and Tammy from Teaching and Learning have been supporting them. And then we have some different ongoing professional development we are doing this year. So we have small group structures, our professional learning communities. You might have also heard them referred to as PIPs in the past. And really what they're focusing on, at least at the beginning of the year, is this resource that's pictured here. It's the distance learning playbook, really going deep into the research on effective distance learning and how you do it well. We've had a few turns on our journey since we last met. So this waiver process, which if you've been following the news, sounded new and exciting, and all the elementary kids are going to be able to go back to school before everyone else. Well, it's all on hold right now. So basically, Sacramento County is saying, as long as we have these data anomalies going on, we're not entertaining any waivers at this point, and we will get back to you on the exact process and requirements for potentially evaluating a waiver. And so what this is potentially going to look like is Sacramento County is going to say, you can open your elementary campuses ahead of being off the monitoring list, but here's the list of requirements you need to comply with. And then what we will do is we will engage as a school community and see, A, can we even accommodate those things? And then ultimately as a board, you guys will have to decide if you feel comfortable with us, opening early based on whatever the parameters are. So at this point, it's all on pause, it's all on hold. But when we have more clear directions from Sacramento County Public Health, we will engage you all as a board and kind of get your sense of how you'd like us to move forward. We may or may not have additional requirements for Pact or VLA. This is probably going to make the most sense to Jennifer on this call as a former homeschooling parent. But there's a debate right now going on as to whether or not the distance learning requirements, such as daily live instruction and having to record a certain number of instructional minutes every day, also applies to independent study students. So the California Department of Education and our attorneys and the California Charter Association, they're all sort of looking at it right now. At the moment, we're planning that, like Alicia's planning over at Pact for a daily workshop every day so we can have that daily live synchronous instruction available. And we're looking at building processes in place where parents will record the learning activities every single day as opposed to over a 2-week time period, which is what we normally do. And then once we get a little bit more clarification from legal counsel and CDE, we'll revisit that with families and staff. And then technology, so our Chromebooks, we finally found out that our Chromebooks are coming on Wednesday, and it's been multiple delays on that. So we're prioritizing with the Chromebooks that we have students most in need at the start of the school year. And then, it just would not be a good facilities project at the Thomas Charter School if there wasn't a delay from Comcast. And so Comcast is a little delayed for Pact. So we're hoping to have internet up and running for Pact next week. But the Pact staff have been actually working from Star Academy or from home as they're working around the technology issues. So with that, I'm going to hand it to each academy. That's going to briefly just kind of let you know what the first week or so of school is going to look like. And I'm going to start with Amy at Star Academy. You want to talk a little bit about what the board can expect?
All right. Hi, everybody. So for Star Academy, we already kind of started this a little bit as of last week. So this is the first last week and then probably the next 2 weeks to this first month. So for building community, we had 7 grade level parent information meetings last week, Wednesday, to go into what it looks like for each grade level during a virtual day. Then this week on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we have individual meet the teacher appointments where the student and the parent will pick up all materials needed and then get kind of a basic 101 on how to get going for Monday. We did a town hall meeting with our students last Friday with Ms. Hines. And then we're going to be implementing parent weekly class meetings. So there will be a virtual 30-minute time block every week, at least until September 11th, where parents can come in to meet with the teachers individually for that class. So if they have questions about how to do something, they can ask at that time. And we're hoping to build the parents networking with each other to be kind of a support group to each other. And then we're starting virtual family nights. We're getting ready to schedule that. We have a parent learning virtual night next week around Seesaw and Schoology. So we're going to continue to implement those. And then for launching into learning, not this week, but starting next week, students will start taking the iReady diagnostic in reading and math so we can see where they're at. And that's kindergarten through 5th grade. We've implemented the Learn, Do, Connect model That way our parents understand and the students understand what they're doing and how things connect. And then this materials pickup, once again, is that individual meeting the teacher / getting your supplies that you need. And then virtual events at student town hall, our virtual parent night, and then the virtual family nights where whole families will be involved.
Thank you, Amy. Oh, my mouse went all crazy. Next, we have Leading Edge, Amanda.
Like I think it's me, but I don't know that picture. It's me. So many of the same things that Amy said, and I think you're going to hear a lot of the same things. We're really just jumping in. I think the teachers maybe feel a little bit like we jumped in the deep end, but we're kind of moving them out of that. Like I just wrote them another email, and they all are feeling okay now, so I think we're good. Our very first thing on Wednesday morning will be grade level meetings. And the goal is for those to start right off the bat with getting kids to think about the idea of what it means to be back in school and thinking about like kind of coming together as a group around this idea of being brave and brave learners. And I'm going to say the word brave so many times that the kids are going to be really tired of me. And yeah, it's going to be good. And so that's actually very right off the bat on Wednesday, the very first thing that's happening. And for the first 2 to 3 weeks of school, all of our homeroom time is going to be about building community and feeling connected and really practicing getting kids talking to each other in these virtual platforms. So that's going to be a big component. Like I said, I'm going to say the word brave so many times that you'll all be sick of it. I came up at our town hall on Friday. It's become part of my lingo. And then for our 6th graders and our new to Leading Edge students, they also will have their web orientation on Wednesday as part of their first day of school, which is another really strong community building activity. In terms of launching into learning, if you have a student in the academy, you're going to see a lot of us teaching the kids how to learn in this model. And it's really funny because we saw it today with the staff, how important this is. I kind of said to them like, okay, here's all your things, go do it. And then there was all of a sudden okay, wait, in which meet and in which location and just reminding ourselves, it was a really good reminder for all of us to pause and say, okay, everything we do in this platform, we have to teach kids how to do. And so that's what you'll see a lot of in the first couple of weeks. Ideally, that teaching will be embedded in the content teaching. It won't just be by itself, but really trying to get them normed to the system. If we can get them really good at distance learning, when we move into a hybrid model, they'll be twice as successful. Like Amy said, we'll be doing diagnostic assessments and pre-testing pretty early, maybe by the end of next week, we'll be starting on that. And we do have in-person schedule pickup starting for tomorrow with the idea that all of our new students, which we have quite a few in the 6th grade, we need to see them to make sure they can get on the computer and actually log in, because if they can't access it, then none of the rest of this matters. We had a student town hall. It was pretty successful on Friday. We are starting this week with weekly family learning sessions that are about both community building and also skill building. And we'll have a virtual back to school night in about a week.
May I ask a quick question?
Of course. Well, I don't know, to me.
Yeah, to you.
Of course.
Is this your image?
Yeah.
Great.
I'd like to say that I created it, but I am not that talented. So
No,
I recruited a former PFA coordinator who had a lot of free time on his hands this summer because he wasn't planning to start a school year remotely, and asked him to make me a couple versions of it. But that's one version. We've also, staff are kind of having a competition to make some other versions. And one of the things kids are going to do next week is make some word art around the theme. So, yeah.
And can you just briefly describe how you picked the word brave?
I don't remember who said it first, Joe or me, but way back when somebody said, maybe it was Alicia, one of us said brave leaders, brave learners. And I just thought it fit really well for right now. And I think that like the conversation that I'm having with teachers and then we'll start having with kids is this is not comfortable. Like there is nothing about this experience that is comfortable. But part of what we need to do is we need to jump in and do our very best in the discomfort. And that's how we're going to learn the most. And there's a whole lesson next week that I'm going to do with them about struggle and why struggle is productive. And then we're going to talk about how bravery isn't easy, but if you can be brave, all the other things will be easy by comparison. And so it's going to be a theme. Oh, it was actually Dr. Ellis. Sorry, Dr. Ellis. I don't remember. Someone said it. It's been good.
It's become part of our group lexicon as we've thought about this year. All right, so now I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Gandhi, who's going to talk about PFA.
Yeah. Sorry, everyone. Okay. Are we good? Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm echoing. Turn your volume down. Okay. Sorry, I'm in Laura's office right now. So we at PFAA, we really worked on, we had 6th grade orientation tomorrow, and we had 9th grade orientation today. All the teachers were present, so that was super exciting. I also made a video for all the students, which is the energy bus, with the idea that how are they going to start the year on a positive note, with the staff really working to build that culture and that community back with them. So we did a paint day on Friday. We will have a virtual back to school night on the 20th. And then we're planning for our first drama drive-in theater performance on 9/10. We're still finalizing a few things. And Karen and I have a meeting next week to kind of finalize some key points about that. And then we're also going to be having a parent community meeting at the end of August again to see how parents are doing and offer some support that we can provide for them. We're also getting ready to roll out a Schoology training as well for our incoming 6th graders and incoming 9th graders in about 2 weeks. To launch into learning, we had our first in-person pickup day today. It was fun, exciting, and also very tiring. It was hot outside. We're also going to be using our advisory time to really use that opportunity for the students to connect with their teachers and each other. And then I already talked about the Schoology training. We're also planning for diagnostic assessments in early September. I really wanted to use the first few weeks of school to give the students a chance to get to know their teachers, and then also give our teachers a chance to really get to know the students, and also really fine-tune the first few weeks of school. And then we're working to make sure that our folders in Schoology and our formats are consistent. So we're working to make sure that we only have one Google Meet introduction letters in each of the folders for each of the classes each week. And then some of the virtual events that we're planning are back to school night, parent meetings. I already talked about the first drama drive-in. And then P4A and I are working together to have a parent night at the end of August. And then we had our first ever student town hall meeting, just like Leading Edge as well.
Thank you, Dr. Gandhi. Next is Ms. Carter, talk about Pact.
So, okay, a little bit about Brave Learners. So where that actually started in my world was that my staff read a book called Brave Learners last year, all about homeschooling. And it's a really awesome book if you ever want to hear some great foundational homeschooling philosophy. So my whole staff read that with the intention of rolling it out to families this year. And then when the world went crazy, we thought we'd just roll with the Brave theme anyway. And so there we are. We just threw the little night on. And this little image here is what all of our staff t-shirts look like. They just came in and they look awesome. So for us, lots of building community. We created a back to school slideshow, which I sent out, I don't know, now a week ago, for families to kind of watch in advance of the year starting as kind of the basic startup questions. And then starting tomorrow and running through Fridays, we've scheduled startup meetings with all of our families. So basically they've signed up for an appointment time and are rolling through one family per advisor at a time over the next 4 days to come sign critical paperwork and then to pick up supplies and materials and books and all of those fun things, Chromebooks, etc. We also included intro videos from staff, which we're finishing uploading so that everybody gets to see all of the people who work at Pact and hear a little bit about them and what they do, try and create some of those connections. Just kind of as a note, this is an odd year for us in many, many ways, but usually we start the year a little bit under enrolled. We're way over enrolled. We have a huge wait list. And as a result of that, we actually have 76 students who are brand new to us. And that's a lot of students for us who have never seen Pact or met the staff. So we're trying really hard to make sure that they start the year off right. One of our other goals is to make sure nobody's ever been to our building. So they're all driving at least to the building and parking in a parking spot to get their things so that they can see where the school lives now. And then our launching into learning, we're doing curriculum distribution and ordering this week. So everything that we knew we needed that got ordered early is getting passed out this week. And then we're taking orders from our brand new families to get all of that curriculum in. I spent some time over the last couple of weeks gathering a whole lot of the free educational resources that are amazing and out there and added them to our curriculum catalog so that families have instant access to some things to do as homeschooling families. And then we're spending a lot of extra time guiding our families to some additional lesson planning resources. We would normally spend a lot of time doing that in person in the first couple of months. And so we're working on making those available. A lot of them are available digitally now, but really continue to point people that direction. And then virtual events, our field trip coordinator is working on, we got a field trip Zoom subscription, which does Zoom field trips. And those have been big in the homeschool world for a long time. So she's working on scheduling some for our students. We have all of our workshops are going to be virtual for the foreseeable future. So those all begin the week of the 24th. Families are registering this week. And all of the teachers have created Google Classrooms as the method for getting those out. So kids are being put into Google Classrooms to access all of their enrichment. We have some really awesome things too this year. The teachers pulled out all the stops. So online cooking classes and art and all that fun stuff. And then our leadership club, which usually organizes our in-person events and helps with that. We're giving them some responsibility in creating some social media events and family challenges. So for example, all the advisors are currently printing out little pictures of themselves in the style of Flat Stanley books, and they're sending them home with their students so that the families can do challenges like take your advisor on a walk or read to your advisor and take pictures to put the advisors out in home. So lots of fun. They're coming up with some silly theme days and fun events. And our leadership students are also working on a read aloud schedule to read to each other and the smaller students on campus. And then Joe mentioned before, I didn't even make it in this slide, it's so new, that as part of the daily live check-in, we're working on a staff rotation where each day there will be a 20-minute morning session and there will be something like a story or some exercise or something for anyone in the community to log in and have a little bit of connection with the staff and peers. And that's some of our fun.
Thank you, Alicia. All right, and then last but certainly not least, we have VLA, Kevin.
Kevin said he had to leave.
Oh,
It's in
okay.
the chat. I think it's in the chat. There's a
Yeah,
is there another meeting going on?
He was cross-scheduled, so let me go through these for him. So he's really working on getting Link Crew up and running in leadership. They've been making new family phone calls to each family, really connecting. This past week too, they've had each of the families come in to pick up all of their materials and really kind of connect one-on-one. And then in terms of their launching into learning, they're, as you can see on the slides, getting ready for grade level meetings and orientations. They're also training kids to get them, the ones that are signed up for classes with American River College, to get up and running with dual enrollment. They're doing iReady assessments for all of their new students as a diagnostic tool, since we don't have CASP data for students this year to kind of figure out where students are at. and making their virtual lab classes for English, math, science, and social studies. And they're going to continue to have weekly Q&A with the coordinator throughout the month of August, just to get families and students up and running. So just in terms of what to expect for you guys as a board, we're going to continue to document our planning. We have this learning continuity and attendance plan that we have to formally approve and write. Good news is we started our planning back in May. There are a lot of schools and districts right now that are scrambling to do this, so we're not in that position, which is wonderful. But you guys have to approve it by September 30th. That's why we're having 2 meetings in September. We'll have a public hearing on our plan on the 14th, followed by an approval meeting on September 28th. And you should have calendar invites from Ziba if you haven't checked your email in a while. And then we'll just continue to follow, the latest public health information. The $25,000 question I get asked almost 3 or 4 times a day is, when will kids be able to come back on campus? Shrug is kind of my answer to that at the moment. But, as we all know, it'll be 14 days after we're off the monitoring list and when there is testing capacity. So, hopefully by October, but your guess is as good as anyone else's. And then, we'll keep you posted on it, whether or not there's that possible waiver for the for elementary students. And then, so that you guys know, when you're watching the news, you're probably going to see some chatter around a bill, AB 1384, which is about legal indemnification for schools regarding COVID-19. Currently, all public schools in California are opening without any sort of legal indemnification. So our best course of action is adopting, the COVID-19 policies, training students, training staff, like we've been doing. But there should be some legal cleanup there. There's also going to be some legal cleanup. This actually gets into the next presentation, which is Anita, around what to do when schools are growing. So Alicia mentioned that we have significantly more Pact students than we did last year. We are currently not receiving any additional funding for those students. The way the legislature set up funding this year is they're funding off your 1920 enrollment, not your 2021 enrollment. And so, charter schools that saw an increase in enrollment and districts that were projecting growth are a little frustrated by this because, they've made investments in staff or buildings or materials and that sort. So there's a conversation going on in the legislature right now about how to clean that up. And then we'll find out whatever that county process is for the health and safety waivers that we talked about. So with that, any final questions? I know you guys pause this along the way and ask questions, but any additional questions we can answer?
Hey, Joe, where is VLA in terms of their enrollment?
Full. So both Pact and Pact and VLA are full. So I believe Kevin's he's like at 128, 130, something like that. And Alicia, what number are you at right now?
We are at 225 and we have about 80 kids on a wait list. So yeah.
So we're full. Both those programs, have some history of some churn, if you will, at the start of the school year. So we'll kind of see how it settles. Seabeds Day, which if our funding is going to be adjusted to be based off of this enrollment, would be based off of our Seabeds date, which is the first Wednesday in October. So we usually use from mid-August to the beginning of October to let sort of the dust settle in those programs. But both programs are very popular. I mean, independent study as a whole in Northern California is very popular. I heard the other day, like Visions has 2,000 students on their waiting list. It's pretty incredible, and I think it makes sense. A lot of families, wanting to have some consistency for their students, not sure what's happening with distance learning or other plans in different districts, have been migrating to independent study programs. And we've seen it even within our small programs as well.
And what about the numbers at STAR and the other academies?
All full with pretty significant waiting lists in each grade level. So, we run our site-based programs basically at capacity every year. This year we had a little bit of additional capacity we were able to add at PFA middle school. So PFA as a whole is up a little bit. But basically the site-based programs and the non-site-based programs are all completely full with waiting lists this year.
Joe, I don't know if I missed this, but what's the number of parents or students that want to do independent study, right? Separate from PFA, VLA and Pact. Did you just say that and I missed it?
Yeah, I might have. So it depends how you answer that question. So in our case, both Pact and VLA are full. So Pact is full at 225, VLA is full at 130. Realize historically this time of year, those numbers are closer to like 175 at Pact and maybe 75 at VLA. So significant numbers. Alicia mentioned, did you say you have 80 kids on your wait list, Alicia?
Do.
And VLA has around 30 kids on the waiting list. And we haven't really done any massive push or advertising. We've had a little bit of advertising going on out there, but because we knew we were going to have these full waiting lists. But in Sacramento as a whole, all of the independent study programs have been reporting really significant increases in waiting lists. I mentioned Visions as an example that I heard recently has 2,000 students on their waiting list.
I guess what I'm asking, Joe, is I thought some parents were going to have the option to, independent of our two programs, to ask for independent study.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is the extended distance learning option, right? Where you can be still part of PFA or part of Leading Edge.
Right.
So we haven't asked families to sign up for that,
Okay.
partially because we wanted all families to try out distance learning, since we all get to try it out whether we want to or not, right? So everyone can try it out and then see what is going to work best for their kids. And you know, like using myself as an example, Kelly and I might decide that actually works really well for Michael, and might choose to keep them in distance learning. And we're going to ask families to sign up by quarter. So the idea would be that, you know, if we come back before the end of the first quarter, they would sign up for the duration of the first quarter, and then they would sign up for the second quarter, and so on.
Great. Thanks.
You're welcome. It's a little confusing, all the different nomenclature. I totally understand. All right, any other questions?
Mine is not a question, Dr. Wood, and it's going to take a little bravery on my part, but I'm going to just make the statement and leave it for folks to think about. Ziba, I don't know if you can go back to the slide that has Pact. Yes, this one right here. So I personally am very focused on the images that we use to convey what we're trying to convey. Bottom line, I want to ask the group for consideration, would it take anything away to remove the weapon from this picture?
I think Ashante might be talking, but you're muted. Happens to the best of us.
I know we have night imagery on other things, and I can't recall what that particular image looks like. I mean, are we using a consistent image, or is this something that's different from our other documents and materials?
Sure. So the Knights are our mascot, and typically our image has been just the helmet part, like the head with the helmet image.
Got it.
We do have some historical imagery, maybe using a sword or a jousting stick, like this particular one. That's been more at the academy level, not necessarily school-wide imagery. So like Star Academy, for instance, at one time had a logo where it was like a little Lego guy with a knight and holding a sword kind of thing. But I mean, we could certainly look into, for future reproductions, removing that jousting sword, I guess is what you call it.
I leave it for consideration. We make a very strong statement in all of our parent-student handbooks about weaponry and all of that. And I say that the images that we convey sometimes create things in our mind, which is why statues are being torn down and all of that, because we celebrate things and we don't even realize we're celebrating them. I would leave it for consideration that it might not take anything away from the knight himself to remove the weapon. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Peggy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, real quick. I was muted. Sorry. I don't disagree with your point, Peggy. It also makes me think about something else, though, and that is consistent branding across our academies. And maybe we need to have, you know, some stock art that each academy can choose from when they're preparing documentation, whatever. Might be something we want to do. And that would help address issues like this.
Yeah, I agree with you, Jennifer, because I think consistency is good within the organization and the academies. And also, you know, we all have, the schools have spirit wear and shirts and things. And I think to relay consistency with that as well is important because that says what our name is of the schools.
I support that as well.
I think maybe Karen was going to say something.
Oh, I had a separate question. I don't know if we're done with this
Oh,
topic.
okay.
Just wanted to make sure that this topic.
Going back to the consistent branding, that is actually one of Miss Hone's goals this year, is to help with a style guide. So we are all aligned, but I like the idea. I hadn't thought of it from the perspective of like a collection of imagery that we could choose from. Historical practice has been that each academy has often independently developed their own spirit wear for the year. But we can definitely look at a process of trying to centralize that a little bit and kind of align it with our imagery and stuff.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely, you know, creating their own, particularly when it's student driven. I think there's value in that, but at the same time, I think we do have to have the consistent branding across the academies.
Makes sense.
So I was gonna say is that, you know, like related to students, they can have like a contest or whatever it is to relate what type of spirit wear they want to initiate, but the logo of the school name and the branding can be the same or similar.
I think that could be fun too for like when we can go back to school, and let's say some PFA students are volunteering at Star Academy and they are wearing the same shirts that the, you know, the elementary kids are wearing to feel connected.
And then Karen had a
I have a separate question. I was just curious as far as the waivers are concerned. So are private schools, is it the same as public schools, or are they like their own special thing?
They're the same. So every type of school, public, private, charter, you name it, we all have to get approval through Sacramento County Public Health to reopen to student instruction. And so also in our particular county, the public health doctors really want to try to do a waiver for all schools rather than just like each school having to apply for different things, because they felt that that would be the most equitable in the sense that any school who has the ability to open could open. So I know the work that they're really trying to do is provide a very strong and consistent frame, almost like a checklist. Here's the things you need to do in order to reopen. That is going to be a little different than what's happening in other counties. So, you know, sometimes on the news, it gets a little confusing. You kind of have to wait, which county is that school in? Because each public health official is handling it a little bit differently, but that's how Sacramento is planning on operating. Okay.
Thank you for the discussion.
All right. So with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Ziba, and I believe she has the slides for our next item.
I'm going to be presenting, so I'll just share my screen if you guys want to give me a thumbs up if you can see them.
We can see them.
All right. Okay. That's right. Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see everyone here. Wanted to give you an update on this year's 2021 budget, how it's changed after the state approved it. The governor had signed several bills to enact the education budget on June 29th. Revenue reductions were proposed in the May revise to shift those cuts to cash deferral. So good news on that. There'll be more information coming. Also, budget trailer bills are include several programs that will protect education. One of those things is a provision for ADA hold harmless, as well as new requirements in attendance and for distance learning. Learning loss mitigation grants and federal dollars continue to be major support for schools as we try to go back to in-person instruction and doing this distance learning in between. And then also pension reforms was another big one that the rates were reduced for 2 years by redirecting our long-term debt, the unfunded debt of the state. So the significant changes that we had since the May revise, and the May revise is what we use to adopt our budget. So those assumptions, what really affects us is that we restored the LCFF revenues and the cash deferrals were increased. So for example, when we built the budget, it included a 2.31% COLA and a 10% reduction, which resulted in a net of a 7.92% reduction in our funds. And it was based on the revenue or the average daily attendance that we were projecting to receive next year. Now this new budget, it restores that reduction of the 7.92. So yay, that's great on there, but it also resets the COLA to 0. It also restores categorical program reductions because some of those categorical programs had the same net effect reduction in there. For example, one is special ed on there. With special ed, because we belong to the Sacramento SELPA, they allocate their funds a little bit differently. So we were able to not get hit too bad with that. It also adjusted the special ed formula for the SELPA base rates, which resulted in about $68,000 for us through Sacramento SELPA. They added $1 billion in learning loss mitigation. And also they changed the formula because when this first came out, it didn't look like Natomas Charter School was going to be subject to any of it because it really went on the Title I fund allocations. And so by them changing the formulas, which we'll get to in later slides and stuff, it really made a difference for us. So in order to pay for giving us back money and reducing those cuts, they expanded cash deferrals, and we're now up to an $11 billion cash deferral statewide. They also eliminated triggers for in revenue reduction in the future and added triggers to reduce the cash deferrals if we get additional federal funds later on. So this slide I wanted to share with you, I got from School Services of California. So this shows the January proposal, May revised, and then the enacted budget. And you can really see regarding the LCFF, I mean, they were projecting to give schools $1.2 billion extra. Then a few short months later, it was a negative 6.5 billion. So that's like a swing of over 7.2 billion. And then the budget was flat, what they're proposing flat funding, which was 0. I mean, that's a huge swing and difference when you look at that. With Prop 98, the minimum guarantee, you can see from each time period how it changes. And the enacted budget actually has a little bit more for the Prop 98 share of the pie than the May revise. With the COLA, and I'll explain this in a little bit more detail, we went from 2.29 in January, then it increased to 2.31, but then they offset it with additional cuts. Now in the enacted budget, they're still going to give us this COLA, but they are applying a deficit factor to it. So in effect, it's a 0 COLA. Now, the legislators will say that there were no cuts made to education, but really it is in a sense a cut because we are counting on that cost of a living adjustment on there. The other thing too is the other categorical programs that are subject to COLA also were able to recoup those reductions. So in the board packet, I had this one paper that I kind of just showed you, focusing on some major changes in a couple of areas. So at the top, it shows what we had worked up for the January proposal, then the May revision. The yellow column is what we use for our adopted budget, and the pinkish peach color is the state adopted budget. So the green column shows the variance of what we had to recalculate. So the net effect for our budget on the deficit factor is that we increase by 5.61%. So we're getting more money in that area. Lottery, they changed the rates for both unrestricted and restricted monies. And so that net difference is a loss of $8 per ADA. And then the mandated costs per ADA rates went up slightly a little bit. So the next section in the middle is just looking at those major funding sources. So after recalculating everything, our LCFF money is, we are gaining back $1.1 million, which is great. Now, when we were first projecting out our adopted budget, we were projecting we were going to lose about 1.3 million. We also were projecting that we were going to have some growth, ADA growth at that time and stuff too. So when I recalculated everything, I went back and I had to use our prior year P2 ADA for this new recalculation on there. So we're capped at that. We got a little tiny bit more mandated cost block rent, and then the lottery shows a reduction for that $8 per ADA. So as of the state signing their budget and us making these changes, our original adopted budget projected an $8.5 million fund balance. When we update these numbers, it goes up to 6.9. At this point, again, it's just reflecting what the state adopted on there. And there's also a little note in blue that says we're still closing the 2019-20 books. And so we will be adjusting our actual fund balance for the first interim report back in December. We'll be bringing that to you.
Question
So
on
I
that?
wanted to,
So,
go ahead.
well, Anita, you said 6.9. Do you mean 9.6?
9.6, thank you.
Yeah. So,
This is being recorded. Thank you very much. Okay.
so Anita, well, back on the other. In addition to what Peggy said, you mentioned that the ADA it was capped, right? Am I understanding this right?
Yes.
Is there a chance, Joe, from what you mentioned earlier, that they're going to revisit that, or is that something different that they're revisiting?
It is a chance that they're going to revisit it. So that's what the legislature is looking at in terms of if they could find a financial fix to allow for growth.
So then theoretically, if they did fix that, then we're in an even better position, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I do have a slide to kind of show you an estimated amount for that later on.
Okay. And a quick note, Anita, I need to get with you after the call. I haven't heard from the bank yet.
Yes, neither have I. So we could talk. Okay. All right. So budget deferrals. I just kind of wanted to go over them. This is a really good slide that says what they are. So budget deferrals allow the state to record a budget cut in 1 year and move the expense to the next year. Now, normally you cannot do that with generally accepted accounting principles, but somehow the state can get away with that. And our auditors are allowing us to set up these receivables and count that. So it's not a hit on our books. This entry also reduces our Prop 98 amount in the deferral. So if they defer money and reduce our cash in 1 year, then that lowers our Prop 98 share for the current year. And then it'll increase the following year as the deferrals get paid out. So we did experience the June through July deferral, which I'll go into detail, but also with the February through May, they're considered both cash deferrals and budget deferrals on the state end. So this is just kind of showing you what we started off with per the May revise. So the state did defer all of our June cash for 15 days. We got it July 15th, and that was about $835,658. Then we also planned for about $2 million in other deferrals starting February. So you can kind of see where the money bags February would be paid out in November, March and October, April and September, and so on. So after the state's budget was adopted, this is the new schedule that they sent out to us that kind of gives you a better picture of everything and also more information. The schedule's still the same, but we also were provided with additional information. So for example, after recalculating everything, it's going to cost us about 3.5 million this year. That's going to be deferred into 21-22. So for those cash deferrals for February through June, here's a little schedule that shows that 45% of February's is going to be paid out in November. March is 30%, excuse me, 70%. So we're going to get 30%. So I did that calculation. In total, it's going to be about 3.5 million. Now, our adopted budget, we had set aside $4 million for cash reserve. So we're within that range on there, but it equates to about 32% of our state aid, our entire budget on there. So we're getting about $68 or 68 cents on the dollar on there. So after recalculating cash flows for multiple years based on our projections, we're okay for now. We project that June 30th, 2021 will end with 5.3 million in cash. The following year, 5.4 million, and then the third year out, 5.2 million. And just a reminder, I always put this slide on here and stuff. Our cash is not, our fund balance is not made up of all cash. We just got to keep that in mind. It's a net difference of assets and liabilities. And so we always want to make sure that we have adequate cash reserves. Now, the CARES Act, we are getting some additional funds. It's kind of exciting, learning loss mitigation. And there's 3 different types of money. So one is going to be estimated at $1,900 per pupil based on 1920's Fall 1 census enrollment for students with disabilities. Then the second one is going to be based on supplemental concentration grants, and it's based on our supplemental concentration grants for 1920 for the P2 period, and then also a portion based on the LCFF base based on the P2 period too. So here's some estimates for us. And so these little 3 pots of money, they also now call them something different. So the coronavirus relief, the CR funds, is going to generate about $592,028 for us. The governor's emergency education relief, the GEAR funds, $71,302. And then the state general funds, the GFs, is $137,619. So that is really great. Now, these funds are not coming to us until 2021. And they have timelines and limitations and lots of compliance to go through. 2 of these funding sources need to be spent by the end of December of this year. The big pot of money we have until 2022. Now, one of the things that we were jumping for joy, or at least I was jumping for joy, because we are now getting these because the legislators changed the allocations. We weren't getting them before. So this was a nice surprise. And we'll be talking more about this at the end of the month when we bring our continuing education plan to you that has to be approved by September 30th. So one of the things that our county office is doing is they're recommending that we wait to spend it till we get the confirmed allocation and we know the cash is on its way. But as a reminder, we did get about $28,000 for SB 117 funds from the state level for corona response. That went fairly quickly. So now what we're doing is my staff is working on spending, or they're pulling all together, what do we spend so far since school closure and into this year? And we may be reallocating some of those expenditures to these funds. So for example, we are over the $300,000 mark of what we spent in order for this whole distance learning COVID life that we're living right now. And that includes mainly, 860 Chromebooks, over 200 iPads, all the supplies, things like that too. And I also wanted to give credit to the county office and did give us a bunch of supplies that we picked up at the end of July that we did not have to use funds to spend for, masks and thermometers and things like that. So anyway, we are going to be looking at seeing what we can reclass if we used unrestricted funds to go towards this. You can charge them as we're closing the books to 2019-20 and let your fund go negative until the funds come in. We just can't set up a receivable for them. Does anyone have any questions on this one though, before I go to the next? No, okay, moving on. Okay, so then let's switch over to the multi-year projection. Because as you can see from what I showed previously, I think this is gonna be a year of ups and downs. So just be prepared, see how the numbers have swung from January to May to June and stuff. So for the multi-year projection, based on the state's adopted budget, we are pretty much projecting flat funding. So what's in the state's budget, or what school services is projecting based on the state's budget, is that broken blue line. with a tiny bit of a COLA on the 2 out years. Now, the Department of Finance is projecting more of a V recovery on there. So they're showing future COLAs. But it is recommended that black line to project flat funding, and that's what we're doing at this time. So to answer Jennifer's question on here, with the hold harmless for the ADA, for a school like ours that is growing, you could see that the orange line is your hold harmless rate, your prior year funding. And if you're growing, there is a gap in between that broken blue line and the orange line of the loss of funds. And that for us is projecting to be over 158,000 on there. Now, if you were a declining district, this graph would be just the opposite, where you'd be getting more cash and having less expenditures because, you know, until they settle up with you, right? And so that's the funny thing about, we're going to keep our eyes and ears open about this legislation if they are going to find money for the growth, because normally growth is offset by reductions or declining enrollment. And they can't take away money when they already promised somebody would be held harmless for declining districts. So we'll just, we'll see what happens in the future. So this is one of my favorite school services slides that I wanted to show you. So off to the left for 1920, you see this was our funding, and it was broken out approximately average statewide $345 per day per ADA increase. And then you can kind of compare the projected expenditures. So the white box or dotted box is special ed contribution. So that's always a guess. But standard school expenditures on average were still under the revenues that they were getting. When you go out to 2021, you see that, okay, because the state reduced the CalPERS rates that they were planning and gave us credits on the CalSTRS rates, we're still doing okay, but then there's the question of special ed. It's not until you get to the year 21, 22, where those expenditures start creeping up, 22, 23. So that third year out is when you're going to say, okay, no more breaks for STRS and PERS. And notice that box for the STRS rate. So $202 on average per ADA. That's because those rates reductions that they gave us the 2 prior years, they're going to make up in that third year out. So it's just kind of like a cash relief for us. But I always like to kind of show this just to kind of, keep in our mind about the multi-year projection there. So the next steps from the budget cycle is Joe had mentioned AB 1384. So we're going to keep our eyes and ears open on that. Hopefully we will get some relief on that for liability. Also, the new learning continuity and attendance plan we will be bringing to you next month for approval. This is going to have a lot of those new funds that I had mentioned, as well as how we're going to do our distance learning and everything else. I also put in here mid-year cuts. So at one point, the state was saying they would have to go back in the summer, late summer, and analyze the tax revenues that were coming in because they deferred tax filing till July 15th. Now, with the language in the state adopted budget, it says that they removed the trigger language for revenue reductions, but you never know what happens. So we might see that we might get a mid-year cut. We don't know. But so I just wanted you to plan for that because it has been a roller coaster ride. So the next major report that we'll come back to you for is in December, and that's our first interim report. So it's going to include today's revenue updates. We're also going to review our enrollment in ADA and just confirm flat funding because some of our LCFF is funded on a rolling average. So the flat funding is kind of a loose term. We will also include any new hire update information from what we projected. And we'll also newly identified expenditures that we need for COVID-19 and distance learning operations. We're going to update the budget for carryovers from the prior year, and then any other additional information from the federal and state as it comes up between then. In December, we're also going to be bringing to you a modified LCAP, which is basically the overview for parents as well. So that will go hand in hand with the budget. In March, we will need you also for a quorum and for second interim report, and then estimated actuals, which is already next to the 2022 adopted budget cycle. So I'll open up for questions.
Board members have any additional comments or questions? Thank you once again,
Okay.
Anita.
All right, thank you. Stop sharing.
All right. Executive Director comments.
Yes, let's bring it home. So as I think you can see tonight, the team has really been planning with some significant intentionality. And later this week, you know, when you see a teacher or you see a staff member, I think make sure to thank them for all the work that they're doing. Our teachers and staff are really showing the, you know, the NCS quality that we would all expect from them. And I think you guys would be very, very impressed with the hard work and what we're going to have in terms of distance learning as we start school on Wednesday. So with that, just 3 dates to be aware of. So school does start on Wednesday, obviously starting in a different format, but school starts on Wednesday. And then we do have 2 board meetings in September. We have September 14th and September 28th. So just wanting to make sure that you have both of those on your calendars. And Ziva will make sure you have invites and that you have that information as well. So that's all I have in terms of comments.
Thank you, Dr. Wood. I will go to Board of Director comments. Do any of the board members have any additional comments?
I just wanted to say a quick shout out to the staff, the administration, the teachers, and wishing them a great first day, first week of a new year. I know there's a lot of uncertainty going on, but we will all get through it. And thank you for everything you guys do. It's really a blessing to be part of a great school.
I had a request that, you know, I think once all of the teachers kind of get up and running, will there be an opportunity for us to maybe join one of the classroom calls? I just personally wanted to get an idea of what our distance learning looked like so that we could just be better informed as we make decisions, you know, about going hybrid or returning full-time back to campus at some point.
Absolutely. You know, so that brings up an idea of, you know, send me a little email if you'd like to do, I guess, like a virtual class visit or something. And I can work with the coordinators on, you know, arranging those, and we can have you kind of pop in virtually to some, you know, like a leading edge classroom or classrooms or Star Academy classrooms or PFA classrooms. Happy to do that.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
I think that would be great because, Joe, my kids won't let me near their classrooms. So.
Exactly.
I have no idea what you're talking about. My child's kind of saying the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So.
Dr. Wood, would it be helpful for me to send a doodle to the board to gauge who would like one?
Yeah, that'd be great. And
okay.
you know, some generally available time. So the way all of our classes are set up is they're live, like you were going to go in person.
Mm-hmm.
So Ziba can send out a doodle survey of some dates and times that you would be available, and then we can figure out what classes are offered at those times and get you into them.
That'd be great. I have found myself without a child at Natomas Charter School for the first time in about 6 years. So I definitely have to work so much harder to make sure that I'm on top of what's going on.
Can't just pop by right now.
Well, I know Joaquin, and we're looking forward to this new year, and wish you all the best of luck. And it looks very promising. We're excited. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, McKenna was so excited to go on campus and pick up, you know, her schedule. She loves all of her classes. She can't wait. yeah, it's just, we got a boba tea afterwards and tried to do like our little traditions that, you know, we went by Target and got a few school supplies and just having fun with it. And I really appreciate, you know, all the creativity and innovation and everything, all the thoughtfulness that you all are putting into this. And it's going to be, you know, I told McKenna, this is going to be something that you're going to, you know, tell your kids about and your grandkids about, you know, and just making the most of it and accepting, you know, learning to have acceptance and just taking it as an opportunity. I mean, who's going to have this kind of opportunity again? Hopefully we won't, you know, hopefully we were learning enough about this that we won't have to go through this sometime in the future. So anyway, thank you for your leadership and everything that you're doing to make Natomas Charter School amazing.
And I'll add mine. I would look forward to being in the classroom virtually, seeing how that goes. What I want to say to all of you is that in order to create those brave new learners, you first have to be brave. And I know that you have worked really hard to reduce the anxiety, reduce the fear so that you can go into this situation and be brave. So I will be with you in thought and you'll be in my heart on Wednesday. Thanks so much for everything.
Thank you.
Any future board agenda items, anything other than COVID, anybody wants to talk about at any future board meetings? I'm open to that.
I just had a thought, you know, because I'm excited about being able to sit in on a class as well, because like Jennifer, you know, McKenna doesn't really want me hovering or anything. And I was just thinking about other parents, how that might be helpful to them, or if not being in, you know, one of their kids' classes, just actually doing like a fake class, you know, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud right now, but so they can see how things operate. I know a lot of us are on Zoom calls for our work, but I don't know. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that don't use Zoom for their work, and it's just an idea to get them familiar with what their children are going through.
That's a great idea. I support that.
Thing that I would like to get an update on, maybe at a future meeting, is how we're doing with our high school programs and working with the seniors, you know, the high school counselors and the application process for colleges. And I don't know if they're doing SAT testing and all of that, but just making sure that our high school programs are staying engaged with our senior classes and offering them the type of support that I think they normally would be getting if they were on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be interested in hearing about the social emotional wellness as we get into the year, maybe at the end of this calendar year or beginning of next year, to hear, you know, how that's transpiring.
Perfect. These are very helpful. Zeba and I are working on the calendar for the board meetings tomorrow, so we can calendar these.
Quick question on SATs. For which group, or I should say, for which class was the requirement waived?
Is Addie still here? Addie, do you want to respond to that? I don't know if you're.
For this current, the last year's juniors, this year's seniors.
Okay, thank you.
And that's as of right now. It may be waived for future groups. We're going to kind of see where COVID takes us.
Yep. Okay.
Have you guys ever had PFA alumni who are now like freshmen or sophomore in college come back and mentor the kids that are like applying for college?
Yes, Susanna's had them come back, and they come back usually around application season to share their experiences.
Nice.
Good. Yeah.
They may still be at home, so
Yeah.
a good time to tap into those resources.
Indeed. All right, if there is nothing else, we are at 7:02 and I hereby adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Good luck
you.
on Wednesday.
Good luck. Have a nice one.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, look, it's just us.
Turn off the live stream.